Hi, peace lovers. It's December, and I'm still practicing my Kitty Compost voice. For these last couple of weeks of the year, I've gathered 17 holiday inspired public domain readings from writers like L. Frank Baum, Henry David Thoreau, and Charles Dickens. It's a bit quirky, I know, but so is Kitty, and so is the new Peace podcast series arriving right here on New Year's Day, the Peace Experiments, Experiment Zero. A humming government facility, a skeptical fact-checking goat, and a classroom full of teens collide when reporter Kitty Ocampos begins investigating the myths that keep peace just out of reach. The peace experiments explore what happens when young people finally ask the questions adults avoid. And perhaps you've been hearing the Next Peacelands here on the podcast. We'll be returning soon to the practice of holding peaceful intention for the specific war zones and the countries that supply weapons to them. But during this stretch of Kitty Reed's Holiday Lit for Peace, the Next Peacelands will simply offer the names of some of the spiritual organizations working quietly and steadily for peace. You can add your own peace intentions to their hopeful rivers of peace if you choose to stay through the end of this episode. As always, the creative books and projects I make for peace can be found at aviskalfsbeek.com, and the music for the Next Peacelands comes from the talented Javier Peque Rodriguez. For a printable list of all Kitty's holiday readings with links to the full texts, visit aviskalfsbeek.com/holiday or see the show notes. Joy and peace to you and yours and to the world. Now over to Kitty. Today's reading comes from Alphonse Daudet, a marvelous French writer who carried the charm and sunlight of Provence into his stories. He was a reporter and author whose imaginative tales helped define the way France saw itself, looking back at history and tradition with a blend of warmth, wit, and gentle satire. He used folklore and legend the way a good reporter uses a notebook to show you what's true by paying attention to the very real character beneath the fancy uniforms and habits. Daudet grew up in the south of France, where the wind is sharp and the stores are long, and he carried that landscape into his fiction. Clear air, moral weather, and the belief that a person's character is shaped by deep, old grudges and the surprising ways they're finally paid off. He wrote with an eye for human folly and humor, trusting that readers could handle big questions and that adults sometimes needed a story to remind them of the stubborn, funny pride that drives us all. The Pope's Mule, published in 1869, is one of his charming, well-loved stories from his collection Letters from My Mill. It's a holiday story through and through, set around the Christmas season in Avignon, focusing on a single animal's infamous 7 years of patiently nursed resentment. Daudet wasn't evasive about stubbornness and pride. He simply believed that justice, even if delayed by 7 long years, would eventually find its moment to shine. We'll read just a small portion today, enough to feel his steady, delightful moral imagination and to notice how he used humor and history to call people back to responsibility and perhaps to warn us about holding on to a grudge. And well, honey, I could read the etching off a holy relic if it helped us understand how character forms. Sometimes the words remind us that change doesn't come from force. It comes from patience, warmth, and choosing a better way. And nobody, for goodness sake, is holding a gosh darn gun. Following is an excerpt from The Pope's Mule by Alphonse Daudet. Of all the pretty sayings, proverbs, or adages with which our Provence peasants embroider their discourse, I know none more picturesque or singular than this. Within 15 leagues around about my mill, whenever a person speaks of a spiteful, vindictive man, he says, "That man there, look for him. He is like the Pope's mule, who kept her kick in waiting for 7 years." I hunted diligently for a long time to find out whence that proverb would have come, what was that papal mule and that kick reserved throughput 7 years. No one here has been able to inform me on this subject, not even Francais Mamet, my fife player, though he has all the Provençal legends at his fingers' ends. Francais thinks with me that it must be founded upon some old tradition of Provence, yet he has never heard it referred to except in this proverb. You will not find that anywhere but in the library of the grasshoppers, said the old fifer to me with a laugh. The idea struck me as a good one, and since the library of the grasshoppers is at my door, I went and shut myself up there for a week. It is a marvelous library, admirably equipped, open to poets day and night, and attended by little librarians who constantly make music for you with cymbals. There I passed some delicious days, and after a week of research on my back, I ended by discovering what I wished to know, that is to say, the history of my mule and of that famous kick saved up for 7 years. The story is a pretty one, although a trifle naive, and I'm going to try to tell it to you just as I read it yesterday morning in a sky-colored manuscript, which smelled delightfully of dry lavender and had long gossamer threads for binding threads. He who has never seen the Avignon of the time of the popes has seen nothing. For gaiety, for life, for animation, for a succession of fêtes, there never was a city its equal. From morning till night there were processions and pilgrimages, streets thrown with flowers and hung with rich tapestries, cardinals arriving by the Rhone, banners flying, galleys bedecked with flags, papal soldiers chanting in Latin on the public squares, begging friars with their alms rattles. Then in addition, from roof to cellar of the houses which swarmed humming around the great papal palace like bees about their hive, there were heard the tick-tack of the lace-makers' looms, the flying of the shuttles weaving cloth of gold for vestments, the little hammers of the vase sculptors, the keyboards being attuned at the lute-makers, the songs of the warpers, and overhead the booming of the bells was heard, and always below sounded the tinkle of the tambourines on the river-bank by the bridge. For with us, when the people are happy, they must be dancing, dancing ever. And since in those days the streets of the city were too narrow for the farandole, fifers and tambourine players took up their post upon the Avignon bridge in the cool breezes of the Rhone, and day and night they danced and danced. Ah, happy time, happy city, when hall beds did not wound and state prisons were used only for cooling wine, no famine, no wars. That shows the way the popes of the Comtat knew how to govern their people. That is why their people regretted them so deeply. There was one pope especially, a good old gentleman whom they called Boniface. Ah, how many tears were shed for him in Avignon when he died. He was such an amiable, affable prince. He would smile down at you so genially from his mule. And when you passed him, whether you were a poor little digger of matter or the grand provost of the city, he would give you his benediction so courteously. A genuine pope of Yvetot was he, but not of an Yvetot in Provence, with something sly in his laughter, a sprig of sweet marjoram in his cap, and not the resemblance of a Janton. The only Janton the good father had ever been known to have was his vineyard, a little vineyard which he had planted himself 3 leagues from Avignon among the myrtles of Châteauneuf. Every Sunday on going out from Vipers, the worthy man went to pay his court to it, and when he was seated in the grateful sun, his mule close beside him, his cardinal stretched at the foot of the vine-stalks all about, then he would order, every Sunday on going out from Vespers, the worthy man went to pay his court to it, and when he was seated in the grateful sun, his mule close beside him, his cardinal stretched at the foot of the vine-stalks all about, then he would order a flagon of wine of his own bottling, that exquisite ruby-colored wine which has been called ever since Châteauneuf of the Pope. and he would drink it appreciatively in little sips and regard his vineyard with a tender air. Then, the flagon empty, the day closed, he would return joyously to the city, followed by all his chapter, and after crossing the bridge of Avignon in the midst of drumbeats and farandole, his mule, stirred by the music, took up a little skipping amble, while he himself marked the time of the dance with his cap, a thing which greatly scandalized his cardinals, because all the people to say, "Ah, that good prince, ah, that fine old pope." Next to his vineyard at Chateauneuf, the thing that the Pope loved best in the world was his mule. The good old man doted on that beast. Every morning before going to bed he went to see if her stable was well shut, if nothing was lacking in the manger, and he never rose from the table without having had prepared under his very eyes a huge bowl of wine à la Française, with plenty of sugar and spice, which he himself carried to the mule, despite the remarks of his cardinals. It must be admitted, however, that the animal was worth the trouble. She was a beautiful mule, black and dappled with red, glossy of coat, sure of foot, large and full of back, and carrying proudly her neat little head, all decked out with pompon, rosette, silver bells, and bows of ribbon. All this with the mildness of an angel, a naive eye, and 2 long ears always in motion, which gave her the air of an amiable child. All Avignon respected her, and when she went through the streets there was no attention which she did not receive, for everyone knew that this was the best way to be in favor at court, and that for all her innocent air, the Pope's mule had led more than one to fortune. Witness Tiste Vedin and his prodigious adventure. Now, I told you we were only going to read a small portion of this charming tale, but I find myself compelled by the sheer pride and patience of this mule to keep going. We have reached the point where the mule has been equipped with all his finery, and that infamous 7-year-old kick is still tucked right in his heart, just waiting for its moment in the sun. You simply cannot leave a store like this unfinished. You have to know if that long-nursed grudge finally pays off. So if you want to know the whole fabulous truth about this mule, Avignon, and the patient workings of delayed revenge, you'll just have to tune in tomorrow for the rest of The Pope's Mule. Don't you dare miss it. Thank you for listening and allowing me to practice Kitty's reporting voice for the big story ahead. Now stay with me a few minutes longer if you're able for the Next Peacelands. Following is a special holiday edition of the Next Peacelands, where we pause on listing the war zones and weapons suppliers. Instead, we rest our intention of peace on a few of the spiritual organizations working tirelessly toward peace. While this list is far from comprehensive, the total number of organizations, large and small, would number in the thousands if we included all who work daily for peace. I ask that you consider taking this time to add your own intention of peace to those working daily toward that goal. Mennonite Central Committee. Peace is here. Community of Sant'Egidio. Peace is here. The Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers. Peace is here. Religions for Peace. Peace is here. Pax Christi International. Peace is here. American Friends Service Committee. Peace is here. Lutheran Peace Fellowship. Peace is here. The International Fellowship of Reconciliation. Peace is here. Baptist Peace Fellowship. Peace is here. Community Peacemaker Teams. Peace is here. Episcopal Peace Fellowship. Peace is here. Friends Peace Teams. Peace is here. Muslim Peace Fellowship. Peace is here. Buddhist Peace Fellowship. Peace is here. Quaker Peace and Social Witness. Peace is here. Network of Christian Peace Organizations. Peace is here. Network of Spiritual Progressives. Peace is here. United Religions Initiative. Peace is here. The Christian Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. Peace is here. Agape International Spiritual Center. Peace is here.